Okay, hello everybody, welcome back to Tìandtarot. So today's reading is all about your romantic relationship karma. So this is not necessarily like a soulmate reading or a kind of your next partner reading, but it can tie into that. So if you wanted to watch this video before a soulmate reading, that would be really good, or if you just wanted to watch this video on its own, that would also be good. But this is essentially digging into what your relationships have been like, why they are that way, why they're on that trajectory, what's the purpose of those relationships, why have they been the type of relationship that you've been attracting? Is there a lesson to learn to kind of end this cycle, or just in general, is there a lesson to learn? And how can you manifest the relationship you want, as well as a quick non-deep dive into what your next relationships may potentially be looking like as well. So today we have 3 piles, and this is a pick a pile reading. So you essentially pick a pile you feel most drawn to, either intuitively or based on the number of the pile or the crystal on top. And if you do like to choose with crystals, I will get into those with you now. So for pile 1, we have this Quartz geode, and they are 2 halves. For pile 2, we have some Brecciated Jasper. And for pile 3, we have a bloodstone. Once you have chosen your pile, there will be a timestamp in the description box below for you to find your pile more easily, and I will meet you there. Bye. Okay, hello pile 1, welcome to your reading. Let's get into your first card, which is essentially going to be the nature of your romantic relationships. Ooh, okay. So you have the 7 of Cups. I definitely feel like your relationships could either, the ones you have had, if you have had relationships, they can be quite brief, more kind of just quick interactions with people, more flings, more situationships, as opposed to serious relationships that have lasted a long time and been very committed. And they also feel very fun. They feel like something from your fantasies, but it also feels like you project a lot onto these relationships. So it feels like you kind of project the idea of what you want onto people and who you want them to be without really considering who they actually are. But for others of you, I feel like you potentially, if you've never had a relationship, I'm definitely strongly getting that from this pile as well. So for some of you, you will have had relationships that you idealize in your mind, that you fantasize about a lot, that have been very brief, and where you may have projected onto them. But for others of you, you may never have had a relationship, which is an element of this pile, and I feel like you tend to fantasize about the relationships you want, because it feels safer in your fantasies than in kind of having a real life interaction with somebody. Because I don't know if you can see, but there's, cups filled with different kinds of things, and there's kind of like a little like castle or like church here, which just reminds me of like fantasies. The fact it's all like up in the clouds as well, it just reminds me of maybe you thinking about different scenarios and different people, and maybe never actually having had these things. So for some of you, that's been the nature of your relationship, and for others of you, I do feel like you project a lot onto the people that you've kind of been with. And I feel like that, in a sense, is a good thing. Not necessarily the projection, but having a good idea of what it is you want is great, because then you know exactly what you're looking for. The problem is that when you project, you're not finding what you're looking for, you're trying to make it happen, which isn't fair to that person, and it's also not fair to you. So that could be the learning curve here. The lesson you kind of need to learn is to kind of move away from projecting onto people and instead get to know them for who they are, at face value and see if you like them, you know? Just a typical visit from my cat there. And yeah, for others of you who are fantasizing, I think the reason your relationship karma has just been that you haven't had one yet. Keep it moving. That's not necessarily a kind of lesson you have to learn. That's more so you being kind of maybe a little bit timid or afraid, taking your time. For those of you who do fantasize about relationships but haven't actually had one, I feel like, you know, taking that time to work on yourself and be by yourself and figure out who you are is also a really good thing, because it helps you know exactly what you want and you won't settle for less because you enjoy your own company, which is amazing. But I do feel like the learning curve here, the reason you're kind of getting these karmic relationships of only having the fantasy and not having a real life relationship, is because you are working on overcoming that fear that you have, that kind of resistance to it, that the kind of timidness that you have when approaching relationships and dating. Your karma here is to work through that so that you can, if you want, have that kind of fantasy relationship in real life. So I wanted to find out why and what is the purpose of these relationships. So I felt 2. So I'm getting 2, and I'm getting 2 because I feel like there are 2 types of people watching this reading. Either the person who is having these short kind of flings and projecting onto their partners, and those of you who haven't actually had a relationship yet. So I've pulled 2 for that purpose. So the first card here is Transfer Grief with Elderflower, and then in reverse we also have Sea Change, but it's sea like the ocean sea. And then it's also Pro T. I don't think I've ever had this one. Okay, so with Transfer Grief, I feel like both of these messages can apply to the 2 groups that I'm kind of talking about here, the 2 types of people. But I am feeling that Transfer Grief is slightly more so for the people who have not had relationships yet, and that is your kind of relationship karma. And the reason for that is essentially that you may be feeling kind of a little bit of FOMO, you know, of the fact that everyone else is doing this thing that you're not doing. And maybe you kind of are feeling quite sad about that. But what this card is kind of conveying is that the purpose of this, purpose of this kind of, in a sense, isolation and separation from relationships, is so that you can feel that feeling of feeling kind of sad and maybe left out and maybe a little bit disappointed. And in sitting with those feelings, you know, you kind of recognize after, you know, a while, after maybe months, years of kind of sitting with those feelings, you realize I've been on my own this whole time and I'm okay. And then it almost makes you realize that while it would be really nice to have a relationship and it's something you would like, it's not necessarily something you need. You don't need to be away from yourself or need to fill your time with other people. You kind of realize that you're happy as you are in your own skin, and that's a really powerful thing, because then when you do get into dating, you're not just going to be with someone just to be with someone. You're going to be with them because you like them, and because you actually value them as a person, and because you think you guys would have a great time together. So it's about transferring your grief into something beautiful. It's about those tears, metaphorically, that sadness, watering your plants and making your garden luscious. So it's about making that into something beautiful, basically, those feelings into something amazing. And then with Sea Change here in reverse, this is about transformation. So you are trying to, those of you who are projecting onto the people you've had and trying to make them into the person that you want them to be rather than the person that they are, you're being told to stop trying to change them. Like, stop trying to do that, because the purpose of this relationship, of these relationships where you are being given the wrong type of person, is because it's trying to highlight that you're trying to control the situation, you're trying to change somebody, and that's not fair to the both of you, because then you're not getting who you really deserve to have, and you're also not letting them find a partner who accepts them for exactly who they are at that time in that moment. And so you're kind of holding each other back from finding the right person. If you try and force two puzzle pieces together that don't fit, then their other pieces that actually do fit them are also going to have to force into an awkward shape with a different puzzle piece because their piece is taken, their piece is occupied, you know. So it's telling you that the reason of these relationships is to highlight that there's something within you that is trying too hard to make things work. And it shouldn't be that hard, it should be easy. So it wants you to stop doing that and to almost change yourself, like have this transformation within yourself where you meet people where they're at, you go with the flow, you go with what life puts in your path, and if it's not right for you, you leave it. You don't keep pushing and working on it and trying to change this situation. If it doesn't work, you go and find something that does, as opposed to try and control the situation. You wait for that right person to come along. So it wants you to work mostly on your own internal transformation as opposed to trying to transform other people. It literally looks like one of these cups like being tipped out. So it's tipping out that kind of projection, that fantasy of this person could be like the stars, this person could be like the flowers, and it's like tipping that cup out, and it's like, no, look into the cup and see what's actually there. Is it, you know, a cup of water? Like, what is actually in front of you? And it's about transforming yourself. So how can pile 1 manifest the relationships they want? And what is, I felt this one, the nature of your next relationships. Okay. So you have the sleeper, cause and effect, and clarity for how can you manifest the relationship you want. It's about looking at things with clarity, not closing your eyes and pretending that things are as you want to see them. So for example, like the sleeper, you're having your eyes shut and being like, yes, this is person A, when really it's not person A, it's person C. And you're like, nope, it's person A. This is telling you to open your eyes and accept that it's person C that you're with, and to evaluate whether you're happy with that or whether you would like to, you know, go out and search for person A. It's telling you to be more present, more open, and look at people with clear eyes for who they really are. But then for those of you who are fantasizing, it's telling you to essentially enjoy those fantasies if you must, like, because it helps you to figure out who it is you want. But it's also telling you to start being more present and try more actively in your day-to-day real life to figure out what you want and try to go after that as well. So essentially to recognize as well, to open your eyes to the fact that now that you have this kind of, these feelings of potentially sadness and feeling FOMO, and you have turned them into recognizing that you're happy in your own skin, now use that kind of insight and that wisdom to find someone you genuinely feel comfortable with, as opposed to just being with someone to be with someone, because that's not really going to be worthwhile for any of you. That's kind of the overall message for everyone in this pile. And then for the nature of your next relationships, this is just like a very light look into the themes of your relationships. So if you wanted a more in-depth reading about who exactly you're going to be with next, it might be worth checking out a soulmate reading or a next relationship reading after this one. But you have the scholar, and you have investigation and research in reverse. Yeah, I feel like with the nature of your next relationship, you're not really going to be scrutinizing anymore. You're not going to be this person who is kind of trying to figure out, like, how could I make them into this person? How could I, if I move A to C and B to D, then I could make it like this. And, you know, like, no, it's like accepting them for who they are. This is kind of telling me that I think by the time you have another relationship, or by your next relationship, you will have done so much good inner work that you're able to recognize when a situation is for you or not. So this essentially in reverse is kind of saying that the reason you're looking for a solution and you can't find one is because there isn't one. So the reason you're kind of looking for person A and you can't find them is because it's not person A, it's person C. And then it also has the message of walking away from the situation and not putting in as much work and effort when you know there's no rewards to kind of receive, and accepting that as well. So you finally get to a place in your next relationship where you're willing to accept whatever the outcome may be. You're willing to accept that this might not be the one for you, or it might be, but you're willing to just see where it goes, not invest so much energy and time and effort into figuring out if this is the right person for you, like not wasting time on somebody that's not meant for you, and you're able to look at things so much more clearly. That's what I see for your next relationship, at least. Pile 1. So that was your reading all about your relationship karma. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like, comment and subscribe, and if you felt drawn to any other piles, please feel free to check those out now, or maybe even check out a soulmate reading or next partner reading. If not, I hope to see you here next week on Friday for another reading on Tìandtarot. Bye. Okay, hello pile 2, welcome to your reading all about your relationship karma. So let's get into your cards. You actually got 2 cards about the kind of nature of your relationships, which is really interesting. Oh, okay, so you have the 2 of Cups and you also have the 10 of Cups. Wow, that's so interesting. Okay, I mean, straight away I would say the nature of your relationships so far have been really positive. If you have had relationships, if you've not had one yet, this is a guarantee that essentially the first relationship you do enter into is incredibly loving. So that's because you have the 2 of Cups here, and this is essentially like the ultimate love card, honestly. So it's literally like 2 soulmates, and you've kind of got this divine guidance, approval that's kind of pushing you 2 together. But then with the 10 of Cups, it's like emotional fulfillment, feeling content, feeling happy with your lot in life and with your family, essentially celebrating and like partying. So I definitely feel like the nature of your relationships so far have been really, really positive. Really good, fulfilled, very committed, long relationships. You might have only ever even been in one and you're still in that one and you're kind of wondering why. You're like, why is it that I'm with this person? Maybe you're starting to think like, am I doing the right thing? Is this because, not everyone stays with the first person they're with forever. And so I think a part of you might be worried. You're like, surely not. Surely I've not hit luck straight away and just found the perfect person. But this is kind of guarantee and reassurance that you have found the right person and you're on the right path and you're doing like the right thing. So that unless you're feeling like strong doubts, in which case trust your own intuition because that knows you best. But this is kind of guarantee that like your relationship karma is incredibly positive, just incredibly loving, feeling so much emotional fulfillment. I do feel like a sense of you may argue or find like difficulties with your partner as you spend time together and get to know each other, but I feel like you're able to tackle those kind of conflicts really easily and in a really mature way, and there's a lot of good, strong communication, and you guys actually hear where the other person's coming from and you really try and work to resolve it. You guys kind of have each other's best interests and intentions at heart. So even if there are arguments, you kind of work through them very, very quickly, very easily. So that's something I'm getting really strongly as well. You've also got like the Cancer symbol down here, which is like all about nurturing, emotional fulfillment. So you guys are so nurturing and caring and kind like to each other. Just such a compassionate relationship, and that's your relationship karma. Like in every relationship you have had or will have, I just feel like whether these relationships work out in the long run or not, the relationship itself was very fulfilling, positive, loving, and it basically just a safe space. So let's get into the purpose of these relationships. Is there kind of like a lesson to be learned here? Ooh, okay. We'll take the top one because there's a lot of cards here. So you have Outshine Apathy with Marigold. that feels like it fits so perfectly into this reading. Essentially, I think the purpose of this relationship is to essentially, it's almost like a cosmic test to make sure that you stay true to who you are and trust your intuition, because you might be feeling like doubts from the outside world. Maybe people are telling you in your personal life, like, oh, it won't last because this is your first partner. No one ever stays with their first partner. Even if it's a good relationship, something will happen. They'll do something. And they're kind of planting these seeds in your mind that make you doubt the relationship. And so, kind of the lesson here, or the test, is to essentially see whether or not you trust that and fall into that kind of trap of believing those kind of like dark forces and shadows around you, or whether you can keep a clear focus on the relationship you do have and the person in front of you. So it's trying to see whether you trust your own intuition or whether or not you almost in a sense self-sabotage by believing what other people are saying or what society dictates is right, because a lot of like society is like, you'll never be with the first person, that's just kind of like puppy love. It's like it's just where you guys are infatuated with each other because it's the first relationship. But for some people it does work out that way, and so this is kind of testing you to see whether or not you're able to stay true to who you are and your feelings at the time, or whether you will kind of be led down a path away from what you're truly destined for because of what other people are kind of whispering in your ear or because of what society is telling you. So that's kind of the lesson here. So I want to see, for those of you who haven't dated yet, but obviously you've got a very positive romantic life on its way to you, I wanted to see how you can manifest the relationship you want, or if you're in a relationship, how you can kind of show to that person that you care a lot about them, essentially. So let's find that out. Okay, so you have a few cards. So you've got the cartographer with a crossroads and exploration. You also have the orator, communication and confidence. This was in reverse. You also have the puppeteer with explanations and apologies in reverse. So first of all, I feel like if you haven't yet dated, I feel like what you're kind of being told is that you need to get out there and explore, and just in doing that and kind of travel the world and have fun and go sightseeing, because in doing that you will find the person you're meant for. So that's already what I'm getting. Also, I feel like if you are in a relationship and you're kind of getting those feelings of what if I'm not with the right person kind of thing, I feel like you're gonna hit kind of a crossroads where you guys have to have a conversation where you kind of get these things off your chest. And I think they're gonna be really supportive and nurturing in a way that you don't expect. So, you know, they're gonna be considerate of the fact that you are having these doubts and they'll try to comfort you through that. For some of you, because I just feel like you're in such a solid, emotionally supportive relationship, they'll support those feelings, and there won't need to be these kind of guilty feelings or apologies or explanations. They kind of fully understand why you're feeling that way, and they help to resolve those feelings. They help you to realize that you're in a great place and that you don't have to necessarily feel that way. But for some of you, if you feel very, very suffocated by your relationship, in a sense, and you really genuinely feel like you've made up your mind and you just have to kind of walk away from that person, this is kind of saying that you can do that, but you can't just like puppeteer people in a sense. So if you walk away, it doesn't necessarily mean that that person's going to be there for you if you do walk away. It's kind of saying that you have to make up your mind. It's either them or it's not them. If you walk away, there's no guarantee that that person will take you back. They might be very mature and very respectable to your feelings, but there's no guarantee that they'll be there for you if you decide that you need to go and explore other options and date other people, because that's not fair to them. This is a very emotional, caring, nurturing person. They're not gonna make you feel bad for the way you feel. That's crazy. They're just not gonna do that. So you could just talk about how you feel, and in that conversation, it can just immediately make you feel so much more valued and loved and like you're in the right place. And you can talk to them about, if anyone's been kind of saying, oh, this is just puppy love, it will, it won't last. You can talk to them about the things they've been saying and kind of get that off your chest and have that conversation to kind of resolve those feelings, and they'll be able to kind of comfort you. But you will also need to return that reassurance as well. And for those of you who also haven't dated, again, although I've said go out there, explore, find who go to places where you may potentially find the person you're looking for, but also go with the flow. Like, don't try to control the situation. The right person will kind of just fall into your lap effortlessly, because you guys are almost, it's just a part of your karma, so it's just going to come to you. So yeah, that was your reading, pile 2. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like, comment, and subscribe. And if you felt drawn to any other piles, please feel free to check those out. Also, if you want to check out a soulmate reading or potentially a who's coming into your life next reading, then that would be a great place to kind of end this reading, a great one to pair this with. If not, I hope to see you here next week on Friday for another reading on Tìandtarot. Bye. Okay, hello pile 3, welcome to your reading all about your relationship karma. So let's get into your first card, which is essentially about the nature of your romantic relationships, the theme. Okay, so you have the Wheel of Fortune. I don't know if you can see this. So this immediately makes me feel like your relationships have just been completely very different. Just, they're completely up to chance. Some have been good, some have been bad, some have been really fun, some have been boring. Like, you've just had a variety of relationships out there that have and haven't really worked for you. It's just, they've just been so different. Like, it's, some people will just end up always dating like Aries, or like some people always end up dating Sagittariuses, and so it just becomes a common theme. For you, I feel like you've just dated every type of sign out there. Like, you've not really found like a common theme, which is really fun. Like, honestly, that's kind of fun and interesting. It makes your life interesting, it makes you interesting. I feel like that's given you so many stories to tell and so many random experiences. So I do get like a fun energy from here, but of course there is also an element of, a little bit of misery. Like, you've had some shitty ones, you've had some boring ones, some ones that didn't work out as well. But the good ones you've had, even if they've ended, they're still, you hold them in a good place in your mind, right? So that's kind of been the relationship of, the karma of your relationships, is having these kind of random interactions with people. And I feel like it's kind of you being such a carefree spirit, going with the flow. That's a great thing to have, because I feel like that's made you really open to all kinds of experiences. But that's ultimately what's going to help you find the person you want to be with, or the people you want to be with if you're, polyamorous, because you're gonna kind of go through everybody, not everybody, but if you want to go through everybody, go for it. But you're gonna kind of go through so many different types of people that you're gonna end up finding the type you like and the person you like. I don't really feel like you have a type though. I feel like you go more off of energy. I feel like you go off of someone's flow, someone's like vibe, their essence, their aura. Like, I don't really feel like you necessarily go by looks, even though looks are important. I feel like your partners have all looked completely different. So what is the purpose of these relationships? I felt this one. So you have Forgo with Hawthorn in reverse. Yeah, I feel like the reason you're kind of having these relationships really is to just explore. I feel like, so with Forgo, there's kind of an essence of, there's no potential to kind of be scrutinized, there's no seriousness that you have to really look into and evaluate, is this the right person for me? Do I like this about them? Do I not? It's kind of just walking into the unknown and going into the darkness and the strangeness of the night and moving with it, kind of like mimicking it in a sense. So I feel like these relationships, the reason why they keep happening and coming up for you is because you're supposed to explore. Like, this is what you're what's kind of on your path. You're supposed to have these really cool and quirky experiences and meet these kind of random strange people and get to know them and almost in a sense like learn from them and get to just share these great experiences. I feel like you're here to meet people. Like, these relationships are helping you to understand people, meet them, and value them, like, because that can be just such a really important part of you just enjoying your life. So I do feel like that is literally the purpose of these relationships, is so that you can explore and figure out who it is you want. So I wanted to know how you could manifest the relationship you want if you have one in mind. Yeah, so you've got the Dancer. Honestly, you have such a carefree energy. You've got such a like cool vibe, a vibe of like, you don't judge people, you don't judge a book by its cover, you like people at face value. I just keep getting this from all of your cards. But you've got the Dancer, self-expression and strength. Yeah, so if you are just yourself, if you just be yourself on all of these adventures, when you meet all of these people, don't let these experiences change you or shape you in a negative way. Learn from, the good people. But if you've crossed paths with shitty people and you've dated shitty people, forget about them. Like, don't let that hold you back. Don't let it get into your mind. Don't do that. Like, don't see it as a reflection on yourself. I feel like you should focus on all the good people you've been with and let that fuel the knowledge that you have that you can have good times and you will always meet good people along the way. There's good and bad, but there's, that's not for any particular reason. That's just how people are. So stay true to who you are. Don't lose yourself in this kind of experience of life that you're going through. Stay strong and stay true to who you are, and naturally that will just help you manifest the person and the relationship that you want, because they'll be able to recognize you more clearly if you stay true to who you are. I also wanted to know what your potential next relationship looks like now that we've got all this information. So you have the Founder in reverse with foundations and community. So let's slide these over quickly. Okay. So I feel like, again, your next partner probably is not the person that you're going to end up with, because you are on this path to just meet, amazing people and get to know all different types of people. I feel like, once again, like, it's going to be much of the same kind of vibe, same kind of relationships, but you learn something from them each time. And I feel like this person as well, they might be a bit of a lone wolf, a bit of a, like, not someone your friends know, not someone your family knows. You're not going to meet them that way, although I feel like potentially the person you end up with might be someone introduced to you via your friends or family, but this feels like somebody completely separated from your immediate circle, your immediate life. And I feel like the nature of that relationship is that, once again, you're just going to be exploring and having a good time. I do feel like you guys are going to be quite like-minded. I feel like you guys are going to be on very similar paths, and so you kind of cross paths really briefly. Like, you know how like an X meets in the middle? Like, you guys are on your own trajectories, you just cross quickly and keep going. So I feel like you guys are just getting to know each other. But I also feel like this has the potential to brew into something that you want, because with rats, like, sometimes like their tails can get tied up and then they're kind of stuck together and things like that. I feel like, especially since I was mentioning this X shape, if you imagine that as like the tails, they could get caught easily at that meeting and you might come back together. This relationship might circle back round, so it might be really brief the first time round, but they might be someone you actually revisit a second time. It might be someone that you have a relationship with repeatedly on and off, if that makes sense, but in a coincidental kind of way. Like, you guys dated, then you parted ways, and then 2 years later you see each other at a concert or something, and then that re-sparks those feelings. It's something like that. But that's kind of the nature of your next relationship. It's this kind of almost recurring cycle, which we also have here. The cycle is continuing. I feel like, you know, a goofy rom-com energy of like, this person just keeps coming up in your life to a point where you just can't deny that this is someone you're supposed to get to know. This person might be your first long-term partner, in the sense of the more you guys keep coming back together, the longer those relationships last each time. And so this might be the first person that you have like a very, very long, almost committed relationship with. Whether or not it works out for the long term, that's, you know, up in the air. You would probably have to check out a soulmate tarot reading or your next partner kind of reading to gauge whether or not this is going to be like a long the person that works out for the long term. But I do see this as the cycle continuing, and then there's some sort of snag, there's some sort of knot that gets tied. It could also be like tying the knot, like getting married, but I feel like something happens where you're crossing paths, you're on the same kind of journey of like exploring experiences and different types of people, and then you guys kind of get caught up in each other's paths. That's kind of the energy I'm getting here. So your next relationship might actually end up being somebody very important in your life who becomes kind of almost a permanent fixture in a weird roundabout sense, because they kind of are there for parts and then they're for not, you know, for not parts. Wait, they're there for some parts of your life and then sometimes they're not there. So it's kind of like that energy. And you just go with the flow because you've got that like dancer spirit. You just go with it. But yeah, that's your reading, pile 3. That's what I see for you in terms of your relationship karma. I hope you enjoyed this reading. If you did, please like, comment, and subscribe. If you felt drawn to any other piles, please feel free to check those out. If not, I hope to see you here next week on Fridays for another reading on Tìandtarot. Bye.